name is Shlomo Weberman. I am part of the Night Seder Chabura in the Young Israel. I'd like to share with you an insight that I had in this week's Sedra, which I think are fundamental to understanding our avoda of Aseres Yemei Tshuva and for the rest of the year. In this week's Sedra, the Torah gives us a mitzvah of Hakel. This is a mitzvah that every 7 years, the entire Jewish people immigrate up to Yerushalayim and they hear the Torah being read by the king, the essential parts. Now, there are two factors in this mitzvah which make it very unique. Number one, this is the only mitzvah in the Torah that there is a requirement for the entire nation to come up, men, women, and children. Children who don't understand what's going on, they must come up and listen to the Torah being read. And the question is, why are the children being required to come up? They are too young to even understand what's going on. Another unique aspect of this mitzvah is that the Rambam says that people who cannot hear from where they're sitting, or even people who don't understand the language, they must listen with full intent to hear. And he even says they must be concentrate with full concentration, be mechen libam, to hear the words of the Melech. Even Talmidei Chachamim, who know the entire Torah, they must come and be fully concentrated, fully involved. And I think these 2 points really are brought out by the Rambam. The Rambam explains that this event is really meant as a recreation of Har Sinai. He says it is an experience in which we feel like we're being given the Torah again. And I think this is very fundamental because if you understand that the point of this mitzvah is not to hear the words and to understand, but rather to experience. You don't even have to understand what's going on. It's an experience. And that means that the Torah is requiring an experience once every 7 years, which is really the time that usually a cycle occurs. And therefore, every 7 years, we must re-experience. And I think that the Torah is telling us that the Torah is not an intellectual pursuit. It's not a question of a philosophical framework into which to view life. Rather, it's an experiential experience. It's a relationship with God. And this is important. And unfortunately, since we do not have the Beis HaMikdash and we can't have this experience, yet it's still vital for us to understand that for us, we have to look at the Torah as how we feel. It's an emotional endeavor, not as an intellectual pursuit. But there's another point here which I think needs further probing, because the person who delivers this is the king. Now, for an American, our approach to king, we think tyranny. That's the Western civilization's approach to a king. And that's the entire foundation of America. And so it brings to question why the Torah, which is our source of morality, not only condones having a king, but actually commands it. And in this mitzvah of Hakel, I think it's brought out, because in this mitzvah of Hakel, which is meant as an experience of the entire community, and the person who delivers it is the king. And I think another thing which may be answered with this is why the entire nation has to be there. Because if it's a recreation of Har Sinai, then it makes sense the entire nation has to be there. Because at Har Sinai, it required Kish Echad B'Lev Echad. So I think if we take this the idea of a king further, we can understand this. Now, the question is, with a king, the Torah commands to have a king. Yet, the Jewish people didn't put a king up until a few hundred years after the commandment took an effect. When they came into the land, they were ruled by a system of government called the Shoftim. The Shoftim was a period of fragmentation. It was a period of tribalism. And the question is, why didn't they put up a king right away? And I think it's obvious that the trajectory of a king must come as an emergence from a nation coming together. It can't be artificially placed from above. Therefore, they waited for a king until they were ready for it. And at the point where they were ready, they were ready. They even asked for it. They asked too early, but the point is that it had to be an emergent reality. It has to be an emergent entity that comes out. And I think the Rambam really brings this out beautifully when he explains that Lev HaMelech Lev Ha'am, the heart of a king is the heart of a nation. The king represents the heart of the nation. He is a representation of the culmination of an entity, of a nation that has such unity, and each maintaining their individuality within this unity, that what comes out is an existence in which the whole exceeds the sum of its parts. And therefore, now it makes sense why the king is the one who reads the Hakel. For an experience that requires each one as a nation to have Lev Melech, Lev Ha'am, for each one to experience this experience of Har Sinai, requires that it be the king giving it over. Because the king is an expression of the heart of the nation. And from this we see that our only relationship with Hashem comes as a nation, because we have to relate to Hashem as our king. And this is where it ties back into Rosh Hashanah as well. On Rosh Hashanah, our job, our avodah of Rosh Hashanah, was to be Mamlech HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to make him our king. For God to be our king, that means that he becomes an expression of us. And Chazal say even more, Ein Melech B'liyam, there is no king without a nation. Because all a king is an expression of the nation. And so that means when we're Mamlech Hashem, we're saying that he is our heart and we are his. And therefore, the only way to relate to him is as a nation, because he, in as much as he exists in this world, is in as much as we make him part as a nation. An individual can't do that. It has to be a nation. And so therefore, if we take this message, we could take a few things from this. Number one is that we have to understand our entire relationship with Hashem, our entire avodah, only comes as a nation. Ki ish echad belev echad. It has to be one man with one heart. And with this heart, this one heart, we are Mamlech Hashem. And with that, his will becomes our will, and our will becomes his will. And therefore, with that idea, we can go into Yom Kippur and expect that if we really brought Hashem properly into this world as a nation, then our will becomes his will, and he will give us a kapara.
I want to take a moment to invite you to our special Night Seder program. Our Aaron and Leah Night Seder program has been endowed to our shul, bringing in outstanding young Talmidei Chachamim to our shul every Monday to Thursday from 8:30 to 9:45 every night of the week, in order to give you the opportunity not just to listen to Shirim, but to do your own learning. That means to say you choose, even if it be half an hour a week, you say, I would really like to learn X. I would really like to learn more about Y. And I want to come in. You can find a chevrusa. You'll be assigned your own chevrusa to work through it at your pace, at your level. That's what Night Seder is about. We're shifting from receiving Shirim of Torah to learning Torah ourselves. Please join us for our Aaron and Leah Night Seder program. Looking forward to seeing you there shortly.